Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, JTF. I'm Chaim ben Pesach, and we have another program with the great David ben Moshe. This is our final program, our final broadcast in English before the election. I'm going to be doing a broadcast in Hebrew as well later on, but not later on today, but later in the week. But in English, this is our final broadcast prior to this important presidential election. So this is something you got to watch. You're going to hear our final closing arguments on why we support Donald Trump and why we must defeat Kamala Harris. You'll hear all the closing arguments. This is an important program for that reason, really important. But before we do that, this program is dedicated to a refuah shlema, complete recovery for Sharon Mitman, Shlomo ben Sarah, Dorit bat Sarah, Reuven ben Shoshana, and Ruth bat Sarah, and to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls for Malka bat Meir, Allegra bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Zed ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Reuven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Harav Mir Kahana, Harav Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi, Bat Liba, Yosef ben Meir, Robert Mittman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, and Yair Levine. Well, next Tuesday is the big day, and people are already voting early. I urge people to vote early, by the way. I voted already in New York, and I urge people to vote early. By the way, the latest statistics show as of the time we're doing this program, 54 million people have voted already. A little bit over 150 million voted in the last election in 2020. So 54 million is probably roughly a third of the people already who are going to vote have voted already. And the vote is 41% of them were Democrats, are registered Democrats. 40% of the people who have voted already are registered Republicans. So it's 41% to 40%. And the remaining voters are independents. So it's very, very close. The early vote is very close, and the polls are very close. This is a very close election. Now, I did a program with Alex Zeitlin, who is Israel's biggest podcaster. I did a program in English with him, and I went out on a limb, and I'm going out on a limb on this program too. I'm going to take a big chance because I know that my foes will never let me forget it if I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but I'm going to make a prediction on who's going to win, and I could be wrong. I'm not at all sure that I'm right. I could be wrong because it's very close. It's very hard to predict this one. But I'm going to predict that Donald Trump is going to win. I'm going to predict that he's going to be able to come ahead and win. And again, big risk. We'll see what happens. Big risk that I'm taking, but we'll see what happens. And the reason that I think Donald Trump will win in the end, despite the massive smear campaign against him, despite the massive effort by the Bolshevik left-wing news media, the biased, lying, hypocritical, two-faced news media, despite all of that, and despite all the backstabbing that's taking place against him, I still think that he'll come out ahead in the end, simply because Americans remember that the economy was better, national security was better, the border was more secure, interest rates were lower, inflation was much less, and the whole situation in the country at large was far better under Donald Trump. There was still a lot of problems then too, and he didn't do everything we wanted him to do, but it was much better than what we have now with Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden. And by the way, if you think the late Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have screwed things up, which they have, I mean, they've turned this country into a mess, a chaotic mess. If you think they screwed things up, you know the old saying in Hollywood, you ain't seen nothing yet. You elect Kamala Harris, she's worse than the late Joe Biden. She is worse. I'd rather have the late Joe Biden, who's basically been in a coma during the time that he's president, but I'd rather have him in the White House than Kamala Harris. She is, I mean, people say you shouldn't call her a communist. The things she advocates really are communism. Just read the Communist Manifesto. Just read Das Kapital, the two books that were written by Karl Marx, the founder of communism. Just read the planks in those books. What she advocates literally comes right out of those planks. She literally is advocating communism. And don't tell us, please don't tell us that it's not nice to call somebody a communist. She can compare Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. That's okay. And she can say that Trump is a Nazi. That's okay. And her and all the supporters. And Tampon Tim Walz, her running mate, can compare Trump to Hitler. That's all right. But if we call her a communist, oh, he's so negative, he's so insulting. Oh, how does Trump? That's what the media says. That meanwhile, the media joins with Kamala Harris in saying that Trump is another Hitler. Look, we're going to start off by speaking to you about Israel and Jewish issues, and then we're going to speak about what this means for America. We're going to speak about both now. We're going to let you know why it is essential that Donald Trump win and that Kamala Harris be defeated. First of all, as far as Israel is concerned, Kamala Harris, even during the campaign, has been threatening an arms embargo against Israel. Now, I don't want America sending arms to Israel, and I don't want American foreign aid for Israel. I think it hurts Israel. But when you threaten to use that as blackmail against Israel and pressure Israel with that, with our very weak and cowardly leaders like Netanyahu that we have in Israel, that could be very dangerous. We saw with Iran, for instance, that Netanyahu didn't destroy Iran's nuclear bomb-making factories, didn't destroy Iran's oil fields, even though Donald Trump urged him to. Donald Trump urged him to attack Iran's nuclear bomb-making program and destroy it. And Netanyahu, the coward, did not do that. He didn't touch that. And he gave in to Harris, and not only to Harris, but not only to pressure from the United States. He himself is just a coward who doesn't want to do that. Even if the United States wasn't pressuring him, I don't think he would do that. But the fact that she's willing to use every piece of leverage at her disposal to pressure Israel is very dangerous, because we have such weak leaders in Israel that might give in to that pressure. Very, very dangerous. And how is she going to apply pressure on Israel? Because she said arms embargo, all right, that's one possibility. But there's another pressure that they're already starting to use, and that's the sanctions. They're imposing sanctions on Israeli citizens and Israeli banks. Trader Israeli banks and trader Israeli credit card companies are cooperating with the American sanctions because they're afraid that the Americans then are going to boycott their bank and boycott their credit card company. And so if the Americans put someone on a sanctions list, put Israeli citizens on a sanctions list, Israeli banks and Israeli credit card companies have been cooperating and blacklisting them and not letting them use their credit cards, not letting them have bank accounts, freezing their bank accounts. I mean, this is outrageous. A foreign country, the United States, comes in and imposes sanctions on Israeli citizens, and Israel, a sovereign country, and Israeli companies give into this and comply with the Kamala Harris, late Joe Biden sanctions. And almost everyone on the sanctions list have been part of the Hilltop Youth. That's the first group they went after. JTF has been so right from the start. We were right from the start. The Hilltop Youth, they're the heroes that all the enemies of Israel are afraid of. They're the ones on the sanctions list because Kamala Harris knows that she wants a so-called Palestinian state. There is no Palestine, there are no Palestinians, but she wants a Palestinian state, which would be suicide for Israel. And she knows the Hilltop Youth are the main obstacle to that. She understands that, so she's imposing sanctions against the Hilltop Youth. But she intends, and her administration already is threatening to expand those sanctions to include Israeli soldiers. Any Israeli soldier is going to be accused of war crimes. War crimes! I mean, defending Israel against the monstrous attacks of October 7th and the intent, the open, avowed promise of all the Arab Muslim Nazis that surround Israel to exterminate the Jews and push the Jews into the sea, and Israel defends herself, and that's a war crime? Preventing another Holocaust and defending yourself against another Holocaust, that's a war crime, according to Kamala Harris.
The Jewish people are the only ones that have to go meekly into the gas chambers. The Jews are the only nation that cannot defend themselves. Once Jews start fighting back, the world turns on them instead of pitying them on their way to the gas chamber. I've never seen anything like this.
Well, it's because of anti-Semitism. I mean, that's very simple. That's what it is. It's anti-Semitism. And Kamala Harris is definite that she's a vicious Jew hater, and so is Tampon Tim Walz, and so is the late Joe Biden. All of them, and they want Israel to go under. They want Israel to lose, and so they're going to be imposing sanctions on all types of Israelis, a whole wide range of Israelis, and try to make Israel into another South Africa or Rhodesia and cause Israel to economically collapse. That's what they're going to try to do. And this plan, of course, this is very dangerous because if we had leaders in Israel, if we had real Jewish leaders in Israel like Rabbi Meir Kahane, or today like Moshe Feiglin from the Zehut Party, if we had real Jewish leaders, Israel could easily withstand this and could overcome all of this. They could overcome all of this easily. But we don't have leaders like this. And the danger is that the Israeli leadership and the Israeli public will panic because it's a small country and the whole world ganging up on this little country. They don't believe in God and they don't understand the Jewish destiny, and they don't understand that a nation with the Jewish brain power that Israel has can overcome this easily and can be even more prosperous and stronger despite sanctions and pressure and all these other things. Israel could easily overcome all of that if they had real leadership. But they don't understand that. Jews don't understand that because we have a generation of people who are faithless. And so the danger is they'll give in and they'll accept the so-called Palestinian terrorist state in Judea, Samaria, and Jerusalem and Gaza. And then Israel will be 6 to 9 miles wide, completely indefensible. And then what you saw on October 7th will happen, God forbid, 1,000 times worse. It could lead to a Holocaust. So we have a tremendous danger here that when you have this type of pressure applied. Now, if she wins, is it the end of the world? It's not the end of the world if she wins, because God is still going to defend Israel and protect Israel from complete destruction. God will defend Israel and protect Israel if she wins. But it will be very dangerous. The only thing we'll have left if she wins is the Hilltop Youth. That's the only thing we'll have left to do everything we can to prevent Israel from insanely giving in and committing suicide. The only hope we'll have left on the ground will be the Hilltop Youth. By the way, since JTF started its campaign to support the Hilltop Youth communities in Judea and Samaria have more than tripled in size. There are thousands of Hilltop Youth out there now, thousands of them. Okay, they've more than tripled in size, and a lot of that is because of JTF. A lot of that is because of the support of JTF, of those good Jews and righteous Gentiles who have been helping through JTF. But Kamala Harris, she wants to go after the Hilltop Youth and all of Israel. So she is a very, very dangerous enemy. I mean, just another example of what we're dealing with here. In Wisconsin, we told you about the situation in Wisconsin where somebody got up and heckled her and started screaming about genocide. Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. In other words, the victims of genocide, the Jews, are being accused of genocide. This is the ultimate evil Nazi propaganda of calling light darkness and darkness light, good evil. This is what Prophet Isaiah warned against, and other prophets call light, the woe unto those that call light darkness and darkness light, and good evil and evil good, and so on. And so this piece of garbage started screaming out about that Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. And he was escorted out because he was heckling her. And then as soon as he left, she said, and I want you to know that what he said is reality. That's what she said. Israel committing genocide against the Arabs in Gaza, against the Arab Nazis in Gaza who have promised to exterminate the Jews and push the Jews into the sea. She says that's reality. So she is so anti-Israel and so anti-Semitic and so hostile and so willing to use every single aspect of the presidency to try to destroy Israel, to try to get Israel to commit suicide, that any Jew who votes for her after hearing what I'm saying is a traitor. Only a traitor would vote for her. Only an evil, self-hating Jewish traitor would vote for somebody who has such a monstrous subjective and monstrous attitude toward Israel and the Jewish people.
You mentioned October 7th. October 7th was just the last straw. For years, rockets have been coming into Israel, and it's just lucky that most miss and just explode like the buzz bombs did during World War II, usually hitting nothing. But London's a big city, so plenty did hit. The Arabs are the gang that couldn't shoot straight, so a lot of them miss, most of them miss. But the thing is, you're living under constant rocket threat daily for years. And October 7th was just the culmination. It was the last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. And Israel felt they finally had to respond. If I were in charge, they would have responded a lot sooner with a lot less casualties. But that's just me.
But they've succeeded with these rocket attacks. Now they're emptying out Jews have fled their home. 100,000 Jews have been forced to flee their homes, and their homes have been destroyed in the north. So they're succeeding. And if this continues, of course, eventually all of Israel would collapse, and that would be the end of it. That would be the end of Israel. That's their goal. And by the way, as far as genocide, the Arabs are already committing genocide, of course, not only by murdering thousands of Jews, which they've done. They've murdered tens of thousands of Jews since 1948. Not only has that been genocide, that's real genocide. When you fight back and defend yourself, that's not genocide. Okay? When you go to exterminate a people who never did anything to you, never did anything wrong to you, and in fact always wanted peace with you, when you do that, that's genocide. And the Arab Muslim Nazis have already committed holocausts. They've already murdered millions of their fellow Arab Muslim Nazis. And we've gone over the list many times. Iran-Iraq war, 2 million Muslims slaughtered by their fellow Muslims. In Syria, 1 million Muslims slaughtered by other Muslims. In Lebanon, at least 500,000 Muslims and about 1 million Arabs, because a lot of Lebanese Christians were slaughtered. Hundreds of thousands of Lebanese Christians were slaughtered, and Druze and other groups. Altogether, about 1 million Lebanese were slaughtered by the Muslims. So they've massacred millions of people. And it's not just the Arab Muslims, the Pakistani Muslims in Bangladesh. In the war between Pakistan and Bangladesh, they slaughtered 3 million Bengali Muslims, 3 million men, women, and children, Muslims slaughtered by their fellow Muslims. And these are all Sunni Muslims slaughtering other Sunni Muslims. They're not even different sects, slaughtering their own brothers and sisters. Millions of them, with brutality that's unspeakable. And I could go on and on. Algerian civil war in the 1990s, 300,000 Algerian Muslims slaughtered by other Algerian Muslims. I mean, barbarism that's unspeakable. If they ever had the power, if they ever succeeded in overrunning Israel, do you have any doubt what would happen? And what about if they get nuclear bombs? What about if Iran gets nuclear bombs and the other Muslim countries get nuclear bombs? Can we have any doubt as to what would happen? And this week also, Israel, actually late last week, the Israeli Knesset overwhelmingly passed a law banning UNRWA, the UN agency. UNRWA, all of their employees joined in the attack on October 7th on the Jews in Israel. They joined in and were slaughtering Jews too and raping Jewish women, the UNRWA employees of the UN. They're all Arab Muslims there, the UNRWA employees of the UN. They're all Arab Muslim Nazis themselves. And they joined in. They joined in the attack. So Israel outlawed them. I mean, if I were in charge, they wouldn't outlaw them. And if I were in charge, they would do something else to them. They would do to them what they did to the Jews. They would do the same thing to them that they did to the Jews if I were in charge. And Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden condemned Israel and demanded that Israel allow UNRWA to continue their operations in Gaza. An organization that openly supported Hamas, and not only openly supported, but participated in the murder and rape of Jewish men, women, children, babies. And they demand that Israel accept this. This is what Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden demand. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats are protagonists for the new Holocaust. They are the proponents of the new Holocaust against the Jewish people. They are supporters of the modern Nazism, the Nazis of our generation that want to exterminate the Jews and perpetrate another Holocaust. And any Jew that supports that is supporting a Holocaust against their own brothers and sisters. I don't like a lot of things about Donald Trump, but we have to vote for him. Any Jew who has an ounce of sanity or self-respect or desire to survive must vote for Donald Trump. As bad as he is on some, and even on Israel, there's certain things he says and does that are bad. And we're going to have problems with him too. We're going to fight him when he does things that are bad for Israel. When he says that we should have normalization with Saudi Arabia and allow the Saudis to have nuclear bombs, God forbid. He and Harris both are willing to do that. Very dangerous. We're going to fight him when he wants to do that. But he doesn't have the level of all-out hostility on issue after issue that we see from Kamala Harris. We have to vote for him in this situation. We don't have a choice. We must vote for him. That's Israel. Now America. The first thing that Kamala Harris did when she became president was open up the border. The late Joe Biden got out of bed at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and appointed Kamala Harris to be the border czar. That's what he called it. That was her position, border czar. She was in charge of the border. And the very first thing she did was open up the border. 20 million illegal aliens came stampeding into the United States because of that. 20 million illegal aliens. They say, I know that the Democrats claim, oh, it's only 10 or 11 million. That's what the Democrats say, okay? Trump says that it's 21 million. I believe Trump. I don't believe them, okay? Because I know, because you can't go anywhere in New York City now without seeing illegal aliens all over the place or in the other major cities, camped out on sidewalks. They're occupying all the hotels. Half of New York City's tourist industry is gone now because all the hotels have been taken over. The city taxpayers have to pay gigantic hotel bills to put them in hotels. I wouldn't put them in hotels. I don't even want to say what I would do, but I wouldn't put them in hotels, the illegal aliens. Okay, I think they should get no assistance whatsoever. They're in the country illegally. They're criminals. If you cross the border illegally, that's a federal felony. Kamala Harris says we should decriminalize border crossings. We should legalize it. It should be legal to cross the border illegally. It should be legal to come into the United States illegally. Coming in illegally should be legal. That's what Kamala Harris has said. She wants to decriminalize crossing the border in the United States without permission. I mean, this is the type of policy that she pursued when she was Attorney General of California, and when she was a U.S. Senator from California, and when she was District Attorney of San Francisco. And now you see what's happened in California. What was once like paradise, I mean, such a beautiful state, so beautiful. Maybe the most beautiful state in America.
The Golden State. So beautiful,
has turned into a smelly, homeless, crime-ridden nightmare. Millions of Californians are running out of the state. California's population is going down every year. It would go down much more if you didn't have all of the illegals flooding in. The illegals are flooding in, but native Californians are fleeing the state at a faster rate than the illegals are coming in. So California's population for 2 years in a row has gone down, is actually decreasing.
Yeah, Shadina went back to California with her mother a few years ago, and they passed Carmel, which is pretty close to where she used to live. And the roads there are in deplorable condition. She doesn't remember seeing roads like that at any time, but just a few years ago, the Carmel was just like New York City, potholes everywhere, potholes with very poor repairs, potholes unrepaired. And that's California today. Plus, the cities are all homeless people lining the streets. And not all these illegals are Latin American. They're coming to Latin America from rest of the world and coming across with the Latin Americans. So we don't even know who's in this country and what their political beliefs are and what they plan to do. Many are here to work. Many more are here to work the system, and some are just here to steal from the gringo.
Many of them are also Muslims. There are many Muslims coming in, and that's going to bring real blessings to the United States. Oh yes. Anyway, and of course, among the Muslims coming in, we know as a fact that some of them are terrorists and planning acts of terror. There's no question about that. We had, when she was district attorney of San Francisco, the end of what was a beautiful city. San Francisco was a beautiful city. It was one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Today, we showed you a film of San Francisco. I don't know if everybody here saw it. You should look at it. You should see our film, the JTF film of San Francisco after Kamala Harris as DA. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable what it looks like. A sewer would be a compliment. And all the homeless and the drug addicts and the gangs and the criminals and the alcoholics and the mentally unbalanced people just roaming the streets everywhere, every street you go on, everywhere you go, all the stores boarded up, no businesses left, just a nightmare. That's Kamala Harris. She was the DA in San Francisco. She murdered people by letting murderers out of prison, and they went out and committed murders again because of her. And we gave you the names, and we gave you the incidents of the people that she's responsible for. She's responsible for them being murdered. She's the one who did that. She released them. She released murderers and recidivist criminals from prison, criminals who had been convicted of felony after felony after felony of violent crimes, and she let them go. We have to give them another chance because the penal system is racist and the criminal justice system is racist. We got to give them another chance. This is what she said at the time. And they went out and committed murder. And by the way, she said it's racist. Who did they murder? They murdered other blacks. They murdered the head of an editor of an Oakland newspaper. One of the people she released. By the way, that Oakland newspaper, very left-wing newspaper, and that was a very left-wing family. But after that happened, they're voting for Trump. They're not voting for Kamala Harris this year. You want this on a national scale now for her to be in charge to be president? I mean, this is all the United States will be committing suicide. We talked about Israeli suicide in the first half of the program. Now the United States is going to be committing suicide. And I'm sure our viewers remember that interest rates were 1/3 of what they are now. Literally, the interest rates are literally like triple what they were under Donald Trump. Interest rates were 1/3 of what they are now under Donald Trump. If you needed to get a loan to buy a car, to buy a home, or interest rates even on your credit card, for those of you who unfortunately don't pay your bill, if you don't pay your credit card bill in time, something which I'm 68 years old, I have paid, There's not one bill that I have not paid on time in my entire life. I mean, not to pay your bills on time is unbelievably irresponsible and stupid. And I hope our people are smart enough not to do that. And if you do have credit card debt, and you do, you should get rid of that debt as quickly as possible. Get rid of that debt, work out a plan to get rid of that debt, and never do that again.
Because the interest rate is on credit cards is insane. You're crazy if you're paying this off. If you want to put something on a credit card, when the end of the month comes, you pay it all off 100%. So you don't have to face that interest rate.
Absolutely. But interest rates are much higher now under Kamala Harris. And they're going to be much higher yet if God forbid she wins this election next Tuesday. Inflation. Do I even have to tell you that inflation is much worse under Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden? Do I even have to tell you that? Inflation averaged 1% under Donald Trump. Inflation under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, when it comes to food prices, is like 35, 40%. It's unbelievable the increases we've seen. And then you want to buy gas for your car or heating oil, or if you have to pay your electric and gas bills for those of you who live in warm climate, you want to pay or during the summertime, you got to pay your electric and gas bills for air conditioning and other things that you have, other needs that you have. You know that the bills have gone up tremendously. This was not happening under Donald Trump, certainly not at this rate, not even close. Things were better. And one of the reasons is because of energy independence. When Donald Trump left office, America was energy independent. Not only energy independent, America became a net exporter of oil. America literally was a net exporter of oil for the first time in decades, the first time in modern history. And Trump didn't even do enough in that area. He should have done much more. But he just released and opened up a little bit, and look what happened. American ingenuity and American entrepreneurship. America became a net exporter of oil. No more energy dependence on Muslim terrorist regimes that get trillions of petrodollars and use it for terrorism and to build nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction and to have a baby boom where they want to overwhelm the world with a hostile population of jihadist haters. This is what we're funding when we don't become energy independent. We're funding suicide for America and for the whole world. The thieves of the desert have become the bloodsuckers of the world. And Donald Trump made America a net exporter of oil, and he'll do it again. Give him a chance, he'll do it again. You know the old song, we did it before, we can do it again. David knows the old song.
Of course, we did it before and we can do it again.
Right. So Trump did it before. He already proved himself on that issue. And I hope he does much more. I would like to see him even open up far more. And if he opened up far more energy, we could literally put the Muslim terrorist countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq and all these other Muslim, and Egypt and all these other countries, we could put them out of business. And you're worried about Russia. Everybody talks about Russia all the time. Russia exports natural gas. Russia's energy exports are what sustain the Russian economy. You could put Russia out of business. America could become the energy supplier for the whole world. America has those resources. But instead of that, the first thing they did after she opens the border, and then the very next thing they do, well, they actually did it simultaneously. On the very first day they came into office, they immediately very first day, they immediately started shutting down America's energy industry and waging war against America's energy industry. It causes pollution. Oh, when the Arab Muslims do it, it doesn't affect the ozone layer and all this other, it's all mythology, by the way, all junk, science, and nonsense. Nonsense.
It's more like the bozo layer.
But they immediately shut down everything. They went to war against America's energy industry. They want to destroy coal. They want to completely put all the coal out of business. Coal, clean coal today, coal is they do it, they process it in a way where coal is actually cleaner than gas and natural gas and oil now. Coal is processed in a very clean, environmentally friendly way now. Why destroy? Do you know that we have enough coal in this country to supply all of America's energy needs for the next 1,000 years? And you want to completely take that off the table? Because of what you think about coal from the past? That's completely irrelevant. Coal today is not what it was in the past. The way coal is processed and the way coal is developed today, it is very environmentally friendly.
It's called scrubbers. Scrubbers clean the coal.
And shale oil. We have enough shale oil for the next 1,000 years to supply all our energy needs. Just shale oil alone could supply all of our energy needs for the next 1,000 years. Just coal alone could supply all of our energy needs for the next 1,000 years. I mean, what a crime this is. We have so many natural resources that could make this world a beautiful place and that could cripple and destroy Islamic terrorism and Islamic jihad and end the trillions of dollars that these Muslim terrorist regimes receive because of artificial dependence on their oil. What a beautiful world we could create. And instead, deliberately, maliciously, shutting down the energy industry and making us more dependent on Islamic oil and on foreign oil in general. That's what they've done. Now we are again very dependent on oil because on oil from Muslim terrorist countries. And so Iran's oil, Iran was getting like $30 billion a year from their oil revenues when Trump left office. $30-40 billion a year. Now they're getting 300 or 400 billion dollars a year, 10 times as much, thanks to Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden. If you let's frame this before we go to David. I know this is a long program, but this is our last chance to speak to you about this. So, and I want you to have ammunition because I want you to persuade your friends and your relatives and other people you know to support Trump, and also to use the arguments we're giving you. We're giving you ammunition so that you can go out there and use this to persuade people as well, and to make sure everybody gets out and votes for Donald Trump. So this show is really important, and every argument we're giving you here is important. You have to know and understand what the consequences here are going to be of these particular actions, of what this is going to lead to in the end. If Iran gets nuclear bombs, if Saudi Arabia gets nuclear bombs, if all these countries get nuclear bombs, we could have a 9/11 here that could be a nuclear 9/11 very easily. Very easily that could happen. And, nobody expected 9/11. We did. We predicted it was going to happen. Nobody expected October 7th in Israel. We did. We predicted that was going to happen. Okay? And I'm telling you that the Muslim terrorists dream of the day when they can use nuclear weapons to destroy the infidel. If that happened, that would be the whole American economy would completely collapse. If you had a 9/11, a nuclear 9/11, do you know what that would do to the American economy? Do you have any idea what would happen, aside from the fact that millions of people could be killed? Do you have any idea what that could do to the American economy, what that would do to world stability? The whole world would go into a depression, not a recession, a depression like the 1930s. And
you didn't mention that on 9/11, 1994, the whole JTF television show was dedicated to how they're coming back to take down the World Trade Center. You predicted it, what was that, 7 years to the day?
Yes, I predicted it 7 years to the day before it happened. On September 11th, 1994, we taped that show. the television show. And on September 11th, 2001, they did come back and attack. Now, I predicted my predictions were not perfect because I'm not a prophet. Okay. I predicted they'd come back in the late 90s. Okay. So I was a little bit off. They came back in 2001. I said they would come back in the late 90s. I also predicted that that it would lead to tens of thousands of people being killed because the building coming down theoretically could have happened. It could have happened, but it didn't. Only 3,000 people, only. It's a terrible tragedy. And I know people who were killed there. I don't know, David, if you know people who were killed there, but I do.
No, but I know people that were in the building and got out.
Yeah, I was nearly killed. But I'm not going to go into that story because I was 15 minutes before it went off. I was in New York City, in that area, so I was nearly killed. But the bottom line is that if something like that, we're predicting now, we're telling you now that you start putting nuclear bombs in the hands of these Muslim terrorist regimes, eventually Muslim terrorists are going to get their hands on nuclear bombs. I mean, we cannot afford to have a situation like this. And not only that, do you know that with the trillions of dollars that Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden are giving the Muslim terrorist regimes in the Muslim world by making the U.S. dependent on Muslim oil exports? Do you know hundreds of millions of new Muslims are being born because of that? They have a population boom because of that. They'd be starving if not for that. They wouldn't be able to do this. This is bringing hundreds of millions of new Muslims into the world. Maybe you like that. Maybe you think that that's a positive thing. If you think it's a positive thing, vote for Kamala Harris if you like that. I'm being very objective. Now, let's just sum up objectively now. If you believe that America should be energy independent and even a net exporter of oil, and that we should put as much as possible the Muslim terrorist oil producing regimes out of business, and that we should have an energy policy of all the above to strengthen America energy-wise as much as possible, then you have to vote for Donald Trump. If, on the other hand, you believe that, no, this is bad for the environment, let's cripple America's energy industry and let the Muslim terrorists get all of the money, and let the Muslim terrorist regimes have trillions of dollars so they can flourish and build new terrorist cells and nuclear bombs and weapons of mass destruction to threaten the whole world. If you believe in that, then vote for Kamala Harris if you think that that's a good policy. If you believe in defund the police and believe in releasing murderers and rapists and repeat criminals because you think that it's racist to put them in prison, that's what Kamala Harris said and did as District Attorney of San Francisco and as Attorney General of California. If you believe that's racist and terrible, then we should release all the murderers and all the criminals and everybody else. If you believe in that, then vote for Kamala Harris if you agree with her. On the other hand, if you believe that we need to protect America and to protect American citizens, law-abiding American citizens from criminal predators, and that we should never release murderers and never release people who are committing these terrible crimes, then you have to vote for Donald Trump. If you believe in an open border, if you think that border crossing should be decriminalized, that there's something wonderful about people coming to the United States from all over the world, they're coming from all these third world countries and coming in, and then they're on the path to citizenship. If you think that's good, if you like that tens of millions of people coming into the country, swarming into the country, taking over everything, taking over all the hotels for free and getting everything for free, taking over all the big cities, and eventually turning America into a third world banana republic. If you think that's good, no, some people think that's good. Some people think that should be encouraged. That's Kamala Harris. You should vote for Kamala Harris. But if you think that a country is not a country, that the United States doesn't exist as a country if we don't have a border, if there's no border, there's no country, that this is insane, then you have to vote for Donald Trump. If you think, now think about this, if you think the economy was better under Donald Trump, then vote for Donald Trump. If you think the economy is better under Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden, then vote for Kamala Harris. If you think interest rates were better under Donald Trump, then vote for Donald Trump. If you think interest rates were better under Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden, then vote for Kamala Harris and late Joe Biden. You see, I'm being very objective. I'm giving both sides here. If you think inflation was better under Donald Trump, that prices were not rising as fast under Donald Trump, and that he had inflation under control, then you vote for Donald Trump. But if you think inflation is better under Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden, when you go to the grocery store, or when you go to pay your bills, or when you fill your car with gasoline, or when you pay your energy bills for your home, if you think things are better now under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden than they were under Donald Trump, then vote for Kamala Harris. By all means, vote for her if you think it's better. If you think Israel should go back to the pre-1967 borders that are 6 to 9 miles wide and surrender Jerusalem, her sacred city, and create a so-called Palestinian terrorist state, if you think that that's a good policy, and that until Israel does that, there should be massive pressure, a worldwide campaign of pressure on Israel with sanctions and with every type of pressure under the sun to get Israel to commit suicide. If you think that's good, then vote for Kamala Harris. You should vote for her. I don't understand, by the way, the Arabs and the Muslims, they're always screaming against. They're always complaining. They're never happy. They're never happy no matter what. The eternal, Rabbi Kahana called them the eternal malcontents. They're never happy. If you believe that Kamala Harris is right when she says that Israel is committing genocide, that we should have arms embargoes and sanctions, and that we should get the whole world to gang up on little Israel to get them to go back to borders that are 6 to 9 miles wide, then you vote for Kamala Harris. But if you don't agree with that, then you vote for Donald Trump. So I think that, in summation, I think that it's pretty clear, for us at least, whom we have to be supporting. I don't think there should be any doubt. And let's hope that people wake up before it's too late. By the way, I am going to say, the whole program is dedicated to the election, but even on this program, I am going to say that people, because you see how urgent it is now, it's more urgent than ever. And you should see it's more urgent than ever to support the heroic Hilltop youth. You should support us and help us to help the Hilltop youth now, because we're facing such a dangerous situation. Doesn't matter who wins the election. Israel is in a lot of danger, and the Hilltop youth are the only hope for overcoming that. They're the only obstacle to Israeli national suicide. It's essential that we support them. If you want to support the heroic Hilltop youth, you go to our Hebrew main page, hayamin.org, and you click on the donate button. There's a donate button in English on top. You click on the donate button, and in several minutes, you can easily and very conveniently donate. If you don't want to do it online, if you want to do it through the regular mail, you just go to, you just send checks and money orders to JTF through the regular mail, and you send it to our P.O. Box, which is JTF P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York, 11365. David, it's your opportunity now.
Kamala Harris is promising a middle-class tax cut. She's saying Trump wants to cut taxes for the rich. Of course, it's the rich who hire people and give you the middle-class jobs. But if you think about it, the Democrat or the communist, Kamala Harris, says she's going to cut taxes for the middle class. When was the last time a Democrat ever cut taxes? You have to go back to even Bill Clinton promising he was going to cut taxes. While George Bush Sr. was in office, the economy went south a bit. So Bill Clinton was campaigning against him and stating he was going to cut taxes. And George Bush, just like Kamala Harris, said, well, I can cut taxes too. Just like Kamala Harris, you're in office now. Don't tell us what you're going to do. Just go ahead and do it. Because he didn't, Bill Clinton won the election. And as soon as Clinton got into office, he didn't cut taxes. He raised your taxes, not just on the rich, on the middle class too. The middle class always bears the burden. Because a tax increase on the very rich, not going to affect them one way or another. But if you're middle class and you're living, just getting by paycheck to paycheck, a tax increase is going to affect your standard of living.
By the way, that was in 1992 that Clinton promised a tax cut. He completely broke the promise when he came into office, 1993. As soon as he got into office, he immediately proposed massive tax increases and passed the biggest tax increase in American history at that time in 1993. And the same thing, the late Joe Biden. We don't even have to go back to Bill Clinton. The late Joe Biden and Barack Hussein Osama, they promised tax cuts for the middle class. They never gave tax cuts. Have you gotten your taxes cut by the late Joe Biden?
I'm still waiting for my tax cut.
Yeah, the late Joe Biden and Barack Hussein Obama made the same promises. There is no question that she plans massive tax increases. She believes in tax increases. Their policy can be summed up very simply: tax and tax, spend and spend. That's their policy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I also wanted to say that Elon Musk is saying if Kamala Harris gets into office, then America becomes a perfect example of what happens to a successful business when it begins to hire all the wrong people like our businesses are doing now. We had so many successful businesses, and now they're hiring so much dead weight, and they're forced to do it. Also, Harris was not the nominee. You people who voted in the Democrat primaries, about 14 million votes were cast in the Democrat primaries. And Joe Biden won almost all of them. And they just usurped the office of the presidency in 2024 from him and just awarded it to Kamala Harris. So she's not your choice. So why don't you teach your party a lesson and vote for Donald Trump? And those that hate Trump, can you tell me why you hate him? I think he was better than most Republican presidents. He did more. He had to fight Democrat after Democrat who was after him, not just no on every policy, but they impeached him. They even impeached him when he was out of office. And if you don't vote down ticket Republican all the way and give us a Democrat House and a Democrat Senate, that's just what they're going to do. They're going to impeach him. That would be their last straw. Haim thinks it'll go fairly smoothly, especially if he wins by a large margin and he'll take office. The Democrats are lawyering up. They're going to challenge this election state by state, and we'll have to see what happens. That's where I disagree with Haim a little. I think it's going to be quite a mess, and we may see the left go crazy and burn cities down because they're not just communists. They're also, a lot of the Democrat Party are anarchists, as we saw with the Black Lives Matter.
By the way, just on your point of the taking the nomination away from Joe Biden, who got 14 million votes, when Kamala Harris didn't get a single vote, and the party bosses made her the nominee, which is, these are the people that pretend that say that they're going to be the defenders of democracy, that they're fighting to protect democracy from Donald Trump. That's democracy? Can you imagine if Donald Trump had done that, if Republicans had done that, if they just had a few party bosses got together and said, you know, we're going to put our candidate up and ignore millions of votes that were cast, you know, and you know, speaking of the late Joe Biden, he's, you know, you had a comedian at Madison Square Garden in New York City who was a real, just a disaster. I mean, he made anti-Semitic jokes also, by the way. You know, it's funny, he made anti-Semitic jokes. That doesn't get any publicity, nothing, because the Jews already, they don't care about them. They have no self-respect. They don't stand up and they don't say, what the hell are you talking about? But he made anti-Semitic jokes. And then he made a joke about Puerto Rico. He said one thing about Puerto Rico, made a joke about Puerto Rico. Okay. By the way, my question to Puerto Rican voters are, you want high crime in your neighborhoods? You want drugs and gangs and high crime in your neighborhoods, which is what you get under Kamala Harris? Is that what you want? You want high prices at the grocery store? You want all of these things, or you're going to worry about a joke that a comedian made? I mean, it's absurd. But anyway, The late Joe Biden then, a couple of days later, and the media went crazy, but the late Joe Biden then said that Trump supporters are garbage. That's what he said. Joe Biden said Trump supporters are garbage.
That's worse than deplorables.
He's calling 85 million Americans garbage. And by the way, when he made that statement at a news conference with Kamala Harris on unity, the need for unity. That was the theme of the press conference. That's unity, calling 85 million people garbage. That's what they call unity. George Orwell wrote a book called 1984, where he said that the totalitarian mindset that they're going to say good is bad, bad is good, freedom is slavery, and so on. This is the Democrats. Unity is calling 85 million people garbage. Okay? Democracy is having a couple of party bosses get together and choose the nominee over the wishes of 14 million voters. That's called democracy. And then they say that Trump is Hitler and that Trump is a Nazi when they support Louis Farrakhan. And they do, by the way. Kamala Harris supports Louis Farrakhan. When they support Louis Farrakhan, who praised Hitler and praised the Nazis. So this is all Orwellian. I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry.
No, if you're on a roll, just go.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I see that one of George Bush Jr., not legally Jr., but George Bush Jr., one of his daughters is supporting Kamala Harris.
Oh.
That's because the establishment Republicans, very little difference between them and the communists. The communists do everything they can to destroy this country, and the establishment Republicans just sit back and watch it happen.
They don't just sit back, they help. They support it too.
There's
They
always
do the
traitors in the party that vote with the Democrats.
They do the same thing. When they're in office, they do the same thing.
Yeah, do you remember how many times Republicans believe in smaller government? When they got the presidency and they had both houses, they increased spending, they expanded the role of government. Nothing changes. As an advisor to Bill Clinton, it was actually his mentor, I don't remember the guy's name, he told him there must be very little difference between Democrats and Republicans, because when the people finally wise up, and it's taking longer and longer for Americans to wise up, and vote the rascals out, you want the new bunch coming in, continuing where the old bunch left off. That shows how much they think of the American people. And the question is, are they wrong? Kamala Harris now says she's a gun owner herself. She wouldn't take your guns away. Yet anytime there was legislation that was against your guns, like cutting down your magazine size, getting rid of semi-auto pistols, she was all for it. Getting rid of what they call assault rifles, although nobody's ever defined what an assault rifle is. If you shoot somebody with a pistol or a rifle, that's an assault. So a gun is an assault weapon. It was years ago, before we became as insane as we are now, machine guns were allowed, fully automatic weapons. Schools had rifle classes where they taught you how to shoot and how to hit a target. No more. You don't see that anywhere. You can't. This country has changed, so you can't even have comedians making jokes anymore because every joke offends somebody somewhere. So this country is, it's not the country I was born into. The country I was born into, if you were bad in school, the teacher would belt you and then send you home with a letter that had to be signed by your parents. And then when your parents saw that, they'd belt you again. Today, if a teacher belts a kid, the teacher gets arrested. The parents come up, yell at the teacher. If the teacher's lucky, she's lucky if they don't take out a gun and shoot the teacher. But that's how America's become, because we're the land of the free and the land of the brave and the land of hope.
Well, at least it's a good thing we have teachers like Tampon Tim. He was a teacher. He gave tampons to boys. That's a good teacher. That's a good example. He said, Coach Tim Walsh. He's the Coach Walsh. They call him Coach Walsh. And by the way, there are some students coming forward saying that Coach Walsh did some things that weren't kosher. Let's put it that way.
Well, as you probably heard in the news, Tulsi Gabbard is a guest all over. She's very patriotic. She was a Democrat, left the Democrat Party, and more recently, she gave the main reason she left the Democrat Party. She said their lust for power is insatiable, and she couldn't cope with that. Plus, they're getting more and more anti-American by the year. Do you remember when they booed God at their convention? And at a rally recently, somebody yelled out a Christian statement to Kamala Harris, and she said, "You're in the wrong building. The building you on is I don't know, whatever she said, 2 blocks down the street," because they're all atheists. And there's nothing wrong with being an atheist if you're a moral person. It's your choice what you want to do. But these people are evil, and God just gets in their way because God sets up the rules, which are what good and evil is, and they want to ignore those rules. Well, she said she's coming after your guns. Now she's saying she's a gun owner. She would never come after your guns.
Oh, by the way, when she was DA in San Francisco, she did go after people's guns.
Also, her voting record. If you look at her voting record, it's to the left of Schmuck Schumer and the communist Bernie Sanders.
By the way, there's a nonpartisan voting group. I didn't bring it with me. If I'd known you were going to bring it up, I would have brought it with me. But you know, there's a nonpartisan group that monitors all the votes that are cast by senators and congressmen. She was named the most left-wing member of the U.S. Senate out of 100 senators, to the left of Bernie Sanders. To the left of Bernie Sanders, who's an open socialist, a Marxist. And she's to the left of him. You want this in the White House? This is what you want in the White House? Insane, 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 insane.
Notice the people that push communism on us are not communists themselves. Bernie Sanders, the communist, who before Kamala Harris was about as left as you could get, he owns 4 houses now. How many communists own 4 houses? It's usually 4 families in a house.
Yeah, he went, by the way, he claims he's a socialist, not a communist. No, oh,
Same
really?
thing.
Oh, really? He went to, of course, it's the same thing. Oh, he went to the Soviet Union on his honeymoon. He wanted to celebrate his honeymoon in the Soviet. First of all, who would want to go to that dismal, freezing, horrible, ugly country? But he went to the Soviet Union, which by the way, lives in the Stone Age. I mean, they have literally everything's in the Stone Age in that horrible country. And he went there for his honeymoon. He so admired the Soviets. He didn't go to Sweden, which is a socialist country. He didn't go to Sweden or a country like that. He went to the Soviet Union, and he never came back.
Also, the Democrat Party, besides being everything we said so far, and of course, they are anti-Semitic, and I don't know why any Jews would vote with anti-Semites. You would think they'd flee. Even if they didn't vote for Trump, they'd look for some other candidate just to get away from the anti-Semitism that the Democrat Party has become. Well, now I've got names of 4, there must be more, who want to take away your right to free speech, because they're saying in the internet, free speech carries too much weight, too much power, and if you spread false information, it's got that same weight and power. And what they want to deem what's false, of course, whatever they don't like is false information. They want to take it away. Harris said that the First Amendment is not, Walt said the First Amendment is not absolute. Harris said this is dangerous with the internet because you could pass bad information along. Well, if the American people had a brain, they'd be able to discern bad information from good information. And the American people should know what's what. I wish they did. Kerry said it, and his daughter said it. There's too much free speech. And both of them said free speech is not absolute.
Who is that? Who did you say said it?
John Kerry.
Oh, John Kerry. Okay, people don't
and his
remember.
daughter in a separate
People don't
interview.
remember. People don't remember who that is.
He was
A senator.
he
From
was a senator, but
Nebraska.
he was also the Secretary of State under Obama.
Oh, you're talking about John Kerry. No, I'm thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
from
Okay.
Massachusetts.
Yeah. John F. and Kerry. Yeah. I used to call him John because his name was JFK and he always imitated Kennedy. Yeah.
He looks like petrified wood from the petrified forest. He has
Ugh.
absolutely no personality. He speaks monotone, but that's neither here nor there. He's against free speech, and his daughter on a separate interview, she's against they're against absolute free speech. If you say the wrong thing, they want to take away your free speech.
The word absolute there, that's baloney. They're against free speech, period.
Of course they are, but
And we don't, and by the way, we don't have free speech right now. We don't have free speech because they censor you the minute you say on this program, we don't say one tenth of what we'd like to say because we'd be censored immediately. We don't have free speech.
If you say the wrong thing at work and you're employed by somebody, you're likely to be, if you say the wrong thing at home and you're employed by somebody and they see what you said at home, they may still fire you because you don't have free speech. Everything is getting more and more controlled. Now, Kamala Harris, or Kamala, says she has a solution for the border. And I think I know what her solution is. It's to legally allow 5 million in a year. Or they'll debate the amount, but she probably wants at least 5 million in a year to come in legally now. That's her solution. Because she's saying it's not fair, it's racist, this is criminal. These people want a better life, they want to seek opportunity. No, what they want to seek is entitlements, and we're giving it to them. We're giving them more than you're taking home monthly in your Social Security. We're giving them hotels, 3, 4, 5-star hotels, and they're turning those hotels into shambles.
You know how much a hotel room in Manhattan cost? $1,000 a night. $1,000 a night. They're getting $1,000 a night hotel rooms. And the taxpayers have to pay for it. That's why for this dump over here, I gotta pay such high taxes. It's unbelievable what I have to pay, the property tax I have to pay on this dump that I live in.
I can believe it because there's a room in Grand Canyon. They get $700 a night. So if out in Arizona, I can just imagine 1,000 must be at the low end for fancy hotels.
No, the suites are $10,000 a night. Suites are $10,000 a night because there is a certain group of very wealthy people who come in and there are. We have wealthy people in American society, and those people, Now you can get cheaper. You can get some. There are some cheaper ones that are $300 or $400 a night, but those are the cheaper ones, $300 or $400 a night. Though you can get some cheaper ones in New York, but they're not the 5-star hotels. They're not the really fancy ones, and they're not as clean, and they're not as. But they're all being occupied by the illegals. The illegals are coming in and taking, and they get it all for free. Can you get, by the way, I ask anybody out there, American citizens, can any of you get free hotels? Go and get free hotels for months on end? Does anybody do that for you? Pay your hotel bills and pay your food bills and give you, not only that, they're giving them cards to go out and so that they can go out and charge and pay for food because they said, well, they have to eat. Can you believe this? The taxpayers are paying for this. Does anybody do that for you?
Would anybody in another country do it for you if you snuck into another country? They'd arrest you and put you in prison for the rest of your life.
Or shoot you. You're illegally trying to cross the border. There's a legitimate argument to be made. People illegally crossing the border, that's like an invasion. Other countries, they'll shoot you.
Kamala Harris was also one of the leaders in defund the police. Now she's saying she supports the police and we should have more police officers.
Yeah, sure.
But she was one of the most outspoken in government for defunding the police after that George Floyd incident. And I want to point out that George Floyd had a rap sheet, pages and pages long, but he wasn't in prison. What's the point of having a rap sheet pages and pages long if you're not going to imprison the guy? If the guy was in prison serving time for each one of those items on the rap sheet, he wouldn't have been killed by police. He'd be alive today. So blame yourselves for that, for putting idiots in office.
They burned down Minneapolis. They burned half the city down. And Kamala Harris raised funds for the rioters and the arsonists who burned down Minneapolis. She raised money for them. She thought that there was something. She said, they're going to continue to do this. Don't think this is going to end, and it shouldn't end. That's what she said. Oh, that's literally what she said. And of course, Tampon Tim was the governor of Minnesota. He supported them. He told the police to lay off. That's what you want. That's what you want in the White House. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah, vote for that on a national scale, not just local. And I just have one little point to bring up. Do you ever buy, I'm sure everybody has, a pair of jeans, and on the right side there's a little pocket inside the big pocket? You know what that little pocket's for? That's for what's left of your paycheck after the government takes everything out in taxes. You could just put all your money that's left for you in that little pocket. Chaim?
You work, by the way, 6 months out of the year in some places, in places like New York, when the Democrats are in charge, like New York, LA, places like that, 6 months out of the year, you work just to pay your taxes, your federal, state, and local taxes. 6 months out of the year, your income tax, property tax, sales taxes, all the taxes, you add up all the taxes and taxes.
Local income tax. You forgot local income tax.
Right, local income tax. And all the other taxes, you add up all the taxes you pay 6 months out of the year. You're working just to pay taxes for people who don't want to work and for people who just get benefits, and people come into the country illegally and get all these benefits. And, and Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden, they want to encourage this. They think this is good. They think it's good because these people, they want to put them, they say, we have to solve this problem. She said, Trump blocked legislation that had Democrats and Republicans. We had a solution to the border problem. We were just going to bring them all in and put them on the fast track to citizenship. That was our solution. And Trump blocked it. Oh, how terrible. He didn't want to put tens of millions of illegals from all over the world swarming into the country on the fast track to citizenship. He didn't like that bill. Oh, how terrible that he blocked it. Insane, insane, insane. That's our summation for this week. I mean, just in your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. I hope when we come to you next week, we're going to be coming to you, we're going to be filming the day after the election, God willing, next week. I hope when we come to you next week, we'll have good news to speak about. I hope so. Don't know, but I hope so. And I made my prediction. I'm being an optimist. I'm predicting that Trump somehow will pull it off. Let's hope, God willing, that I'm right. But we'll see what happens next week. For JTF, until next week, this is Chaim ben Pesach, and for David ben Moshe, Shalom.